All right, it's that time of year. Everybody's been fired. Everybody's been rehired. Now it's time to start talking about who's going to get fired next year. It's never too early to talk about that, is it?
That's right. That's exactly right.
And kicking off our list today is somebody that I wasn't real hip on. You defended him. I started to buy into it, and then he disappointed us both. And that would be Kevin Stefanski of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, and it's weird that I haven't really heard anything about Kevin Stefanski being on the hot seat, but I feel like him being on the hot seat is just kind of got to be implied. Like with what has happened there, and granted, he's taken Cleveland, which has been a poverty franchise, and he's won some games, and so you have to give him credit for that. But with the direction the Browns are going, like if and the fact that they have Deshaun Watson now. Depending on what they do this offseason and who they might bring in. Like if they have another losing season, like Kevin Stefanski, in my opinion, is probably out of the building.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. What Stefanski did was remarkable, and I didn't realize it till just now that he turned Freddie Kitchens' disastrous 2-win season into an 11-win season, which is remarkable in and of itself. But now there are questions because they've gotten worse every year and only won 7 games last year. With that said, to give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt, they thought Mayfield wasn't it, so they made a change. They got Deshaun Watson last year. Watson sat most of the year, and then when he did come back, he'd been out a long time. So there's a little bit of a mulligan for last year, which I think is proof, not necessarily proof, but it's validation of why we think he's on the hot seat. Because he went 11-5, they turned around and only won 8 games the next year, and then last year only won 7. But there's a lot of questions that may be beyond his control. Now he's got Watson. Watson has been able to shake the dust off. He's going to have an offseason to prepare. They're going to have an offseason to work together, an offseason to get all their shit together and come back out. And I think anything less than 10 or 11 wins than Kevin Stefanski is showing that he's stuck and not going anywhere and probably going to lose the locker room. And even if he could come out and win 15 games the next year, we don't know that, and probably time for a change. And this is where we talk about that sometimes good coaches get fired, that things get stuck. They get stuck in a rut. They lose a locker room, whatever the case may be, and they don't go anywhere. But he appears to be stuck in the mud, and they better pull themselves out in the offseason or he could be in a lot of trouble.
Unfortunately for him, the Browns just gave the quarterback $230 million guaranteed. So if one of them's got to go, it's going to be the coach.
Yeah, agreed completely. With that said, I am curious to see what they are going to do. Stefanski has shown that he can win. We know what Deshaun Watson is capable of. I don't know if he's going to come back out and be the Deshaun Watson he was, or be better, or it's going to be the Mike Tyson effect, and he's only going to be a shell of himself, and we won't know until next year. So we're definitely keeping an eye on what's happening in Cleveland. That brings us to Josh McDaniels. I got to start this off with, I swear to God, I thought Brady was going to end up with McDaniels in Las Vegas. I'm incredible. I'm still shocked. I'm so much so that I'd almost put money that it's still not over.
Nah, it's over. I'm putting that in the universe. It's over.
Well, did you know that Brady retired and postponed his broadcasting career because he tried to get back with his wife?
Interesting.
Yeah. And she has told him, no, I'm not interested. So now, the next step is speculation of his return to the NFL isn't imminent. The speculation's imminent, not his return to the NFL. So I expect that to be a topic of conversation come up here in the next few weeks. Las Vegas still doesn't have a quarterback. And I've heard that they're not interested in Rodgers. I don't know how much that's a rumor. I don't know how much validity is. I don't know why they wouldn't be. But that's what I've heard. So they still have a quarterback problem in Vegas. So something's up, and I don't know what it is. You just don't get this far and not have some kind of a plan about how you're going to fix your quarterback. This isn't like we're just going to wait till July and see how things work out.
Yeah, now I feel like the answer for them has got to be to draft a quarterback. When you go 6 and 11, like I feel like the answer has to be draft a quarterback. And whatever they decide to do, like you said, like Josh McDaniels going into the offseason, I thought was for sure going to be on the hot seat. I recently watched the Raiders GM did an interview on Bussin' with the Boys with Taylor Lewan and Will Compton. And I listened to that whole thing. And the GM for the Raiders and Josh McDaniels were together for a time in New England. So they have a relationship and they're close. So I don't know if Josh McDaniels is going to be out, especially because they're going and getting a new quarterback. I think if they keep Derek Carr and they have a disappointing season, then you look at the situation and say, okay, maybe Josh McDaniels is the issue. But I also think you have to look at the past with Josh McDaniels, what he did in the past, and factor that into it. So it's this Josh McDaniels, whether he succeeds or fails, especially if he fails, there's going to be a lot of conversation about it if he can't find a way to have a winning season. And so for me, maybe I'm biased. If he has another losing season, I'd say go ahead, get rid of Josh McDaniels and go and get somebody else. But again, because of what I heard the Raiders GM say, it almost doesn't sound like he's going to be on the hot seat no matter what happens.
Yeah, there's a couple things I got to say. That the last part could be legit. It could be we're going to stand by our man kind of thing. It also could be take the heat off and let's not make this a circus around McDaniel's job. And so he's not going to say much. And then the guy could very easily change his mind 8 games into the season and be like, you're done. So there's a lot going to happen between now and then. But for now, we got to take the man for his word. And when you mentioned what McDaniels has done in the past, let's remind everybody that he was 12-20 in Denver, and he was 6-11 last year. So he's 18-31 as a head coach. Now, we've seen this before. We've talked about this before. Reich is going to be a perfect example. Reich is going to go to Carolina. He's going to do better than he did in Indianapolis. That's my guess, because Reich is the kind of guy who learns from his mistakes. He's going to build on that, and he's going to get it right. We've seen that with Bill Belichick, right? His tenure in Cleveland versus his tenure in New England. What we're seeing out of McDaniels so far is he took a playoff caliber team and took them to 6 wins. That's not a good start. And then, so that automatically takes us back to Denver, where he was 12-20. So when we're looking at identifying patterns, the pattern doesn't look good. And that's not even including when he backed out on Indianapolis, which I still don't know what the hell that was about. Something about Irsay's wife or Irsay, Josh McDaniels' wife didn't like Irsay or something. I don't give a shit. You signed a contract, you made a commitment, then don't make the commitment. So there was some waffling there. And because we don't know this guy personally, we don't know his personality, we can only make decisions based on the information we have. And right now, the information we have doesn't look very good for Josh McDaniels. But true to form, talking about Kevin Stefanski and Deshaun Watson, I think you're right. If they bring in a young quarterback, he's going to get a mulligan for a year, because they're just going to expect that, the learning curve with the quarterback. And with that said, bringing in a young guy who's got some intelligence, giving Josh another year and they work together, that may be the match we need. It might be a Peterson, what's his face kind of match. And so there's a whole lot going to happen over the next year with the Raiders, and it could go either direction with this guy. Either this time next year he could be fired, or he could be really looking forward to the next season. So we're going to keep an eye in Las Vegas and see what happens there too. All right, I'm going to let you kick us off with Brandon Staley.
So Brandon Staley's in an interesting situation, right? I'm somebody who thought coming in he was going to do a great job, and during his first season, I thought he did do well. But then looking at what he did in the second season, and then you kind of combine the two and see everything that he's done as a coach, and it's the same old Chargers. Like, he didn't come in and change anything. This is the same Chargers that is consistently disappointing. And I think that always starts with the coach. If there's anything I've learned from you about football, it's that coaching matters. And what's going on boils down to coaching. Like, especially after last offseason, they added so much talent to that roster that already had a decent amount of talent on it. And the fact that they still disappointed the way that they did, that comes back on to Brandon Staley. So in my opinion, this might be the hottest seat going into the 2023 season.
So you know that I completely agree with you. I have not been on board with Brandon Staley since day one, and and I think what Brandon Staley has done is he's squandering talent. Maybe he knows how to get talent. Maybe I don't know. He's probably involved in personnel decisions. He knows how to build a team, but he doesn't know how to utilize it. Ironically, it reminds me of a man named Don Coryell, who was the coach of the San Diego Chargers in the late '80s, late '70s, early '80s, who had guys like Dan Fouts, Chuck Muncie, Charlie Joyner, Kellen Winslow. The Chargers never lived up to their potential then, and they're not doing it now. This Chargers team is loaded with talent, and they should be doing. And Coryell started out good and won, 10, 12 games every year on a 16-game season. Got into the playoffs, got in the AFC Championship a couple times, and just couldn't get it done. And then suddenly went down, 6 wins, 7 wins, and it tapered off till we finally rode them all the way down to the bottom of the barrel, and he got fired in the mid-'80s. So my concern is that this is what's happening with Brandon Staley, that he's taking them as far as he can possibly take them. And coaches like that get caught in a weird place because they've taken as far as they can take him, which is pretty good because they're winning games, but they're not winning as many games as they probably should be winning. So do you take a chance on another coach and ruin the whole thing, or do you just hang on a little bit tighter, hoping he's going to change it? We're definitely going to see, because I was looking at his record. So Brandon Staley's record, it was 9-8 and then 10-7. And his first year, we can certainly give him a pass there. But last year at 10-7, they should have been much better. They got an outstanding quarterback. They should have won more than 10 games. Even 10 games is pretty good, but they still lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, which are on the rise, right? So there's a lot of excuses here that have gotten him through the next year. But I think anything less than 10 wins is definitely I don't want to say he's definitely fired, but he's definitely on a hot seat if he stays in another year, without a doubt. I mean, if he's got 9 wins next year, he better get 10 or more the next year he's gone. I would even say, I would say with this team, 10 wins and a playoff win should be the bar that this team sets, because they're capable of making a run to the AFC Championship. Now, a lot goes into that, and I understand that, but they just didn't show the strength that they could make a run last year, and they should be.
And I mean, he's bringing in new coaches all around him. Like, he's getting the opportunity to stay. He's getting different coordinators, different assistants. Like, it's a test to see, whether or not he's going to be the guy. But with what we've seen from him and this team over his first 2 years, like, I just don't see anything that says that he's going to be able to push them over that hump.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. This is one that might surprise people. And I'm going to make a case for this, and then I'm going to argue against it as well. But that's Mike McCarthy of the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, I don't need to tell anybody, including Cowboys fans. This is where Cowboys fans and I are going to be on the same page. It's been disappointing for them. Even as much as we like to tease Cowboys fans and make fun of them and that whole thing, the Cowboys have underachieved, and there's no denying that. They are loaded with talent, and they should have gotten a lot farther. And I not liking the Cowboys was terrified they were going to make the Super Bowl this year, because they have the talent to do so, but they're falling short. And we talked about how much that falls back on the coach, right? Now, with that said, do you want to make any comments on that before I go into my with that said?
No, you're good.
Okay. It has come to my attention that the Cowboys have put Dak on notice, that they have thrown this responsibility on Dak Prescott and said to him, but see, what I don't like about that's the whole Tony Romo thing. And we have had this conversation about Tony Romo over and over and over again. Tony Romo plays in a different system somewhere else under somebody other than Jason Garrett. he's got playoff wins and maybe even and finds himself in the NFC Championship. I believe that with all my heart. I believe Tony Romo is a good quarterback. And so I'm going to defend. I'm not a huge Dak fan, but I do not have a problem telling you how talented the man is. And I'm not going to put this all on Dak. But it appears that somebody else is. So I would say when we were talking about Kevin Stefanski, and you made the point that they're paying their quarterback a lot of money and they're not going to get rid of him, they're going to get rid of the coach. It appears that Jerry Jones may be leaning the other way here and ready to ship Dak out and hang on to McCarthy. That's all I'm saying. That's what it appears like to me.
And I mean, that's plausible, and I could see why they would want to do that, right? Dak, when it came down to last year, the turnovers just killed the Cowboys when it really mattered the most. So, and that comes down to Dak. So I could understand that. And again, they've been winning a bunch of games. So, you know, I'm not somebody who would think Mike McCarthy would be on the hot seat, but being Mike McCarthy and with him being the Cowboys coach, like it's the Cowboys, like Jerry Jones, you can never predict him. So Mike McCarthy is going to come up in this conversation every time he doesn't win a Super Bowl for the Cowboys.
Yeah. But the bottom line is somebody's got to be held accountable. Whether it's Dak and or Mike McCarthy, somebody, if Dallas, I would even say maybe if Dallas doesn't make the NFC Championship, Jerry might get a little itchy. It's been a long time, and he spends a lot of money. I think part of it. I think part of it's he's in the middle of it, but he's not going to fire himself. I'm just saying. I would imagine in Dallas the expectations are real high, and everybody ought to be careful because I don't know that anybody's safe. They might ship both of them out. Who knows? Okay. I really hate talking about this one because I feel sorry for the guy. But dude, Todd Bowles shouldn't even been retained for this year. This is bad. The guy has had one winning season total in, like 7 years coaching as a head coach. He's had one winning season. I'm sorry. 2 winning seasons. No. 1 winning season. New York Jets, 2015. Had 10 wins. Other than that, it's 2 wins, 10 wins, 5, 4, 8. I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to keep consistency. They had a good team under Arians. They tried to make as minimal changes as they could. But Arians is now going to be 2 years removed. Brady's leaving. This whole thing is a goddamn disaster, and all Todd Bowles is going to do is make it worse. I do not see this. I do not see a turnaround here. I think Todd Bowles' career should be over, and probably is over as a head coach once it's in. If I had to put money on who's going to be fired first, my money is on Todd Bowles.
Yeah, it just seems like even with like Byron Leftwich isn't the coordinator anymore, like Todd Bowles is trying to make changes, but it just feels like Todd Bowles is one of those coaches that like put him at defensive coordinator and he'll thrive. And just keep them there. Like that's some coaches. I saw some guys are just offensive line coaches forever. Like it's just like that. Sometimes Todd Bowles needs to just go back to being a DC and keep it that way.
Yeah, I agree completely. And there's a term in business called the Peter Principle, and the Peter Principle means that every person in an organization will always be promoted to one level above what they're capable of. Right. So you get somebody that's good at something, they get promoted to the next level. They're good at that, they get promoted to the next level. Eventually, they will get promoted to a level that they're not capable of handling. But nobody knew that until they promoted the guy. Right. And we see that with some coaches. I think that's what's happening with Todd Bowles. I agree with you. He should not be a head coach. I'm sure he's a hell of a nice guy. I'm sure he knows what the fuck he's doing. But it's apparent that he's not HC material, not the leader of men to lead an organization, which takes different skills than it does to be a coordinator. And it's Bucks fans which I'm one of them. We're in for a long ride next year.
Yep, going to be a long season for the Bucks.
Long season. All right, last one is a guy who may have just saved his ass, and that's Ronnie Rivera. I like Ron Rivera. I've been disappointed with what's happened in Washington. He's like got them just a little bit better enough to keep his job, but it's going to wear thin. And what's he do? He brings in the hottest offensive coordinator in the league the last 5 years with Eric Bieniemy, who is a man who has something to prove. He's tired of not getting head coach jobs because everybody thinks he's winning because of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So he cut ties, left a sure win. I mean, the guy probably has another 2 or 3 Super Bowl rings. If he stays, he's going to have 2 or 3 Super Bowl rings in Kansas City. He walks away from that to go join Ron Rivera and the Washington Commanders to prove his mettle. So unfortunately for Ron Rivera and Eric Bieniemy, their careers are hinging upon the fact that Eric Bieniemy is one of the reasons that the Chiefs are so powerful offensively.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I think this is the perfect move for Ron Rivera to make. Like the fact that you were able to land Eric Bieniemy, like in the timing of it, like you got to think about the timing of Eric Bieniemy becoming available and Ron Rivera needing a guy to come and help save him, especially because Eric Bieniemy, Patrick Mahomes, still early in his career with everything he's accomplished. He's still a young quarterback. Like Eric Bieniemy is going to be working with a young quarterback, whether that's, I believe it was Sam Howell was the rookie they drafted last year. Does Washington draft another guy this year and try to make that the guy? Like they're going to have a different quarterback. It's just pretty much guaranteed not going to be Carson Wentz. Taylor Heineke, I believe, is an unrestricted free agent, and he's looking to go somewhere else. So they have a new project that they can work on, and I think that's going to be the saving grace for not only Ron Rivera but Eric Bieniemy and what he wants to accomplish in his career.
Yeah, the interesting thing, based on the comment that I made last, the interesting thing about this is this decision is either going to be incredibly brilliant move, and suddenly the Commanders have one of the top offenses in the league, and they find themselves deep in the playoffs, and Rivera looks like a genius. Or it's going to completely backfire, and they're both going to be looking for jobs next year.
There is always that possibility.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. So, if you had to rank these in order, with one being the most definitely getting fired, to what do we have? 6 on this list.
Yep.
I would put Bowles at number 1. I expect Bowles to be gone by this time next year.
Yeah, Bowles is number 1 for sure.
I would probably put Brandon Staley second.
I agree with Brandon Staley at second.
Yeah, I think Brandon Staley, the only thing that's going to save Brandon Staley, if he gets 9 wins, he might get another year. I think if he gets 9 wins, there's a 50-50 shot. I think if he gets less than that, he's gone. I think if he gets more than that, he's going to get another year. So I put him. Yeah, I put him at second. I'd say from there, I probably have to go with Kevin Stefanski. It's kind of a toss-up between Stefanski and Daniels on this next one for me.
That's how I feel too. But because of the relationship between McDaniels and the Raiders GM that I mentioned earlier, I will have Stefanski at 3 and put McDaniels at 4.
That's fair. I can go with that for sure. Next, it's also kind of a tie with McCarthy and Rivera. But I think McCarthy's job looks safer than Rivera, simply because of the gamble Rivera's just made with Bieniemy. But that could flip-flop really quickly, because if Rivera and Bieniemy have immediate success, then Rivera is anywhere near a hot seat at all, and he would definitely be last on this list or off the list completely.
Yeah, especially because, McCarthy, I don't think we mentioned it earlier, McCarthy doesn't have Kellen Moore anymore. I believe McCarthy's going to be calling the plays. So added responsibility could weigh into that decision. But if I was putting it, I'd put Rivera would be 5 for me, and McCarthy would be 6.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say that if the Cowboys, it's very possible the Cowboys could come out and sputter and only win 7 or 8 games. And if that happens, McCarthy's gone. Jerry Jones won't put up with that shit.
Yeah, I could see that. A gross overreaction by Jerry Jones would not surprise me.
Yeah, me either. So there you have it. The 6 coaches we think are the hot seat. We even ranked them for you. So tell us how we did, what you think. Leave us a comment and let us know. Thanks for watching.